be here. She has to prepare for a hurricane, so we'll let her pass this time. Uh, but I have a special guest, Havel. We've actually been really good friends on Instagram for almost like 2 years now. And he always has interesting subjects to bring to my attention. Very much a free thinker. And it's kind of cool because we live kind of different lives. He lives in Mexico, I live in America. So we have two different perspectives from two different countries. And I think that's kind of cool. So I will waste no time. Hey, Havel, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks. Thanks to your audience, and thanks for having me here. This is the first time I think we talk like one on one. It's just like just a little message here and there and audio clips, but that's it, right? Well, we talked before on
Twitter
Twitter.
Live.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that was real fun. That was really. It was very helpful. It was a nice conversation. Thanks a lot for that. It was actually extremely helpful because people think that that kind of things that are going on over there, they are not happening here. Like that's the claim, right? Like this is not happening. This is not happening. And the fact that you brought that up on that conversation, then when you said, yeah, people will claim that it's not happening, right? And they were like, whoa, hold on, what was that? Like, just say that again slowly. It was, yeah, it was very helpful. A lot of people just like they just come to us because it was not in my space, was a friend's space, Mariana's,
Yeah.
and she's just like, yeah, a lot of people just came back and they are just like chanting, like it was great. So thanks for that.
Oh no, it's a pleasure because it's kind of cool to just think that how impactful we can not only just be to our own audience, or people that speak English, or people that are just in America, but that you could have an impact on other peoples across the world and all different languages. And so it was a very cool experience for me because there was an interpreter, so that way I could hear their questions, or what they had to say, their perspective. So it was definitely an interesting conversation on Twitter, and very grateful for that. I had ideas today to talk about a few things, uh, as far as Havel. He sent me a article that kind of shook me up a little bit. And so I kind of want to just share it with y'all. And like, I have the link if anybody's interested, put in the comments, and I would more than happy to send it to you. I only have pretty much the article, and let me see if I can do this properly. Nope, I cannot.
Well, you can share this like a screenshot.
Oh, yeah, I was going to do that.
Okay.
I think I'm still learning.
Yeah, yeah, we need a lot of younglings helping us with technology, right? Like I'm such a boomer.
Y-
I'm not,
Me
I'm not.
too.
Yeah, but
I
I'm not.
Well, I really am, because I'm just like, I mean, I should know how to do this where it says share screen. Duh.
Yeah. Oh, there
All
we go.
right. So
So, so
I'll let
PJ.
you tell us about it.
Okay. So, PJ is in Spanish is Poder Judicial, which is the like the branch of judicial questions, like things in Mexico. So this lady here, the one with her eyes blurred, she's under. an investigation that has been going, I think, for around 1 year and a half now. Yeah, around 18 months, something like that. And she's under this investigation because she's being abusing sexually children, right? But it's like pre-K children from 2.5 months, I think, till
Hmm.
up till 2 years. No, no, no. Hold on. 43 days after they are born. So newborns, literally.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's extremely, like extremely disturbing, right? Like these are babies. So there's a lot of evidence. There are 26 um, different investigations going on simultaneously against this lady, and she's being defended like she has 36 lawyers defending her. She's
Where's
uh,
where's she coming up with this money if she was a preschool teacher?
yeah, and it's not any preschool. This is like a public preschool, so it belongs to the state. It belongs to IMSS, which is the Instituto Mexicano del Seguro Social. It's a social security, right? So she works there. They just closed it. Like they just closed the that nursing home. They just closed it like in July. So it comes all the way from back from July from last year.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have the money. She's being helped through this organization, International Amnesty Mexican branch. You know that.
Hmm.
So people suspect, and it's not, like it's not, how do you say, a bad intuition about this, but they kind of think that this has to be with a huge, like a huge problem with a lot of cartel things going on. So, but it's kind of funny because this help that she's getting, it is supposed to come from this organization that kind of centers on people who's being unjustly put in jail, right? Like they put them in jail, but this is not fair. So that's the claim from this organization. It's like, how do you claim that about this case? How do you do that? Like there are 26, like different children that have been abused. I think because like you read some stuff and then it just disappears, it just poof, it's gone. And then there's a lot of people making a lot of claims, so it's very difficult to really, like just know things, for a fact. But I think they found like pornographic material and stuff like that. So you have all this evidence, right? Like all these claims, all these denounces, or do you call that denounces? Denunciation. I don't know.
Um.
Well,
Well.
you have all of this, right? Like all of this evidence, and they are claiming that she's innocent, and that's, like that's the, how do you say, that's the main thing about international amnesty, that they go through cases from people who is unjustly uh, incarcerated.
So essentially, it's like a public defender.
Yeah, 36.
However, there's 36 of them.
Yeah, yeah. So, it's kind of like it is really weird. If you go, like, if you look for pictures from this kindergarten, well, this nursery home, you will see, like, you will see it, right? And what is funny about it is that it's just, like a, I don't know how to say this, but it's just like a very, I mean, it doesn't seem anywhere near a luxurious, like it's not luxury anywhere or anything, right? And they just, like, there is a lot of money going on, like there's a lot of money flowing there. Like they just got I read somewhere they got 7 million pesos, which is, I don't know, like 35, 300, yeah, $100,000 on 2022, just that year. And you look at it and you just, it's just like, like normal. It isn't even normal. It's just like, like poor. I think you
Hmm.
just look at it and it's just like, whoa, is this like, do you bring your children here? Yeah. And they have around $21 million pesos, which is like $1 million in donations from last 3 years. So that's like, that's disturbing, like really disturbing. So what goes on is that people are not talking about this because it looks dirty from every angle that you look at it.
Well, also, I mean, it's pretty much seems to be like a front store.
Yeah, it is.
It's not really intended to be a nursing or a nursery school. It is intended to, I would imagine, funnel money and make it look like it's something it's not. However, they are actually using it as, or they were using it as a nursery, where this individual was not only probably funneling money, but also the sexual um, abuse that this woman caused these children. And I read on the article that as it goes and gets prolonged out longer and longer, that it is a less likely chance for them to even remember, or they'll want to push it back because it was so evil and sinister that they couldn't handle it. So, even though that there's all of this evidence where you really shouldn't need their testimony, um, you would have their medical records. And obviously, if there was penetration, if something were to happen to these children, physically, you're going to be able to tell that. So it's just very disturbing to find out that they would avoid uh like all of the evidence. They're like, and prolong this out longer than it needs to be, and taking up, I mean, I would imagine there's court in Mexico just like there is here in America.
Yeah.
So why would you take up tax paying dollars, or judges or lawyers time, when you kind of have everything there to show you exactly what this person was doing to these children.
And because of the ages, you see, they are like very young. So most of them, they have no discerning, right? Like they don't know what happens, they don't know what's going on. So that adds up to this case. So they want to dismiss it as long as they can. And the thing, like, Mexico is, it's kind of weird. Like, it's kind of an awful place because the longer it takes, well, it happens all over, right? Like,
Hmm.
tend to forget, right? And the thing is, as the time is going on, like the longer it will go, the like the chance to really get to the people behind this, it's gonna vanish, right? So I think that's the aim. They just want to, like, they just want to make this distraction, like, put your eyes on her, this is what's going on, just focus on that, and it will, like, it will vanish, and that's it. What they did was, well, we just close it and that's it. It's like, hold on a second, like, there's a lot going on here. Is it? Yeah, just close it and that's it, and let's see what happened with this lady, and just put 36 lawyers behind her, right? It's just like, what? And this organization is very, like, it's very suspicious, right? Like, it's international, and I think they made a documentary, like they sponsor it, to make their claim, like this, uh, citing James Lindsay, this modern Bailey strategy, right? Like they show you something that is really easy to defend, but they, like, the mod and they have the Bailey, right? Like it's extremely hard to defend that, and they just show you the side that they can defend easily, right? Like this is easy to defend. So there's people that is unjustly in jail, so we will defend those cases, right? We will take your money to help these people because these people need help.
Hmm.
There's a lot of people trusting these organizations, and they're just giving them a lot of money. A lot of that money that they are receiving, I think, comes from the fact that if you make donations, you can kind of wash money, right?
Absolutely.
So they are getting this money a lot, a lot, and it's like, oh, I have 36 lawyers now. Right? So that's the way. That's the way it's working right now. It's like, okay, I will give you a lot of money. I will produce this horrific, right, like this horrific thing, and you can defend me, not me, this lady, right? So that's how we were looking at it. The thing is, like, it's very like not a lot of people is talking about it. Not like you don't see a lot of press around this, like, and like none. There are like, if you look for this, like if you look for this, you will see, I don't know, like small, like not very, like not mainstream media.
Right. It's not being publicized.
Yeah, no, no, it's not mainstream at all, right? Like just, like small journals here and there, like local journals, but that's it. It's just like, no, they will claim, yeah, yeah, no, we informed you about this. It's just like very weird.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a big difference for a organization to be giving money for public defenders on charges that aren't so gruesome, especially towards children. You know what I mean? And if the evidence points to uh, her actually doing that type of abuse, I mean, I don't. How would you be okay with being in bed with that? And justifying that money, like, I mean, wherever that money came from, you're going to justify it and use it on somebody that is, being accused of something very sinister. And it'd be different if it was he said, she said. I mean, when you're talking about, medical records and, um, documentation on the computers of, child, abuse, it's like hard for it to be swept under the rug, but yet it is.
Yeah, yeah,
Yet it is. And that is very scary, because how do you fight something like that, you know?
and the more you read, the worse it gets,
Yeah.
right? Like it's very gruesome. It's just like, whoa, this is not okay. This is, if I might say, it's diabolical. Like seriously, like this is another level of evil, right? And the thing is, like, I mean, the people I work with to fight this, we actually do not, like we do not go into these things that are very, how do you say that, like so specific, right? We try to help people. We help people to fight this at home, right? To identify this, because for example, in Mexico we have a law already, this is already installed, where people can, well, not people, children can change their IDs, so they can change their gender, right? Their self-perceived gender, they can change it at will. And from that, like everything starts to run, like a domino piece that you just pull and you just take it, and it goes further, because then they can ask for surgery, treatment, and stuff like that. So our point of view is, every, like, they can make 1,000 laws, right? Like they can have 1,000. If the children know how to defend themselves from this, if the parents know how to identify the signs, then the law is just, like, it doesn't matter, right? We have strong children with the strong parents, and they can take care, like the parents can take care of their children by teaching them how to take care of themselves. So that's what we do, right? But this just got our attention. It was just like, this is criminal in so many ways. Like 43 days after being born, that's just diabolical. That's I cannot, I cannot express it any other way. This is just evil, like pure evil. And you just read, something here and something else, just like, whoa, this is not okay. Like, you have to pray before reading that. It's just like, this is not okay. This is like not at all. Because how do you teach your children who's 30, like 100 days old? How do you, like,
to protect themselves.
yeah, right? Like, if anyone comes and tell you this, how? Like, he's 100 days old. He doesn't even speak.
It's so bad that it allows people to believe it's made up rather than it be the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
Because it's so bad. Like you're like, no, 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 no way could that actually happen. No individual would actually be that uh, evil.
Yeah, there's a name for that. In Spanish, is percepción motivada. It's like a motivated perception. So you just don't want to fight the big thing, right? Like, you just want to fight the little thing. Like, let's put it on an example. Imagine that someday one of your nephews comes and he's extremely high, right? Like, extremely high, and he's maybe high, I don't know, for taking cocaine or something like that. But he, like, next day, because you don't want to have that fight when he's high, he tells you, no, no, we went to this party and they were giving away, I don't know, space cakes, right? So it was
Hmm.
a lot of marijuana in the brownie, so I got extremely high from that, and I was just trying that. And you kind of, you don't want to fight that fight. You don't want to fight a fight where someone is, like, just injecting whatever, like heroin or whatever, and so you just want to fight the small fights, right? Like, I just want to. So I think that's what's going on here. It's just like, okay, that's extremely, that's evil. That's pure evil. We don't want to live in that place. So that's what, like, people won't engage in this combat. The thing is, it's like, it cannot remain invisible. I don't think so. I don't think this should remain invisible. As many people should be aware that this goes on, because, I mean, they they are merciless.
And I mean, to take it anything that, like you said, if it's not like small, and it can be accomplished and fixed in a short amount of time, people are more interested in that. When you're talking about things that are really sinister, like, mutilating children before they even understand what that means and what that long-term effects would have, on them, um, or what parts of life that they would miss out on due to not being properly informed and not being properly protected by adults that have fully functioning brains, and then you have something like this, and it's so bad that they don't want to believe it, and it's a lot of different steps you would have to take to see it go down. And you would also have to very much go without, because it sounds like there's businesses, other law enforcements, and probably even the citizens that benefit from non profit organizations or whatever you were talking about that's paying for this woman's lawyer fees, like, that are benefiting from that money. Maybe they don't have their hand in what happened, and they would never do anything like that, like, but the blood would be technically on your hands, and that's a lot to, digest, and that's heavy, and on top of that, now I'm gonna have to suffer because they provide, services and financial things that, perhaps they need, or they think that they need, or that they want, or for just their greed. I believe that, money is very helpful. However, it is very toxic and evil because people will go and do horrible things, or not say anything at all to benefit from it and to continue to receive it.
Yeah, temptation, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, it's there. And well, one thing that adds to this thing is this is a subject that you cannot have a conversation about. Like, how do you go to your friends? It's like, have you heard this? It's like, just shut up, man. Do not talk about that. It's gruesome. It's just like, that's disgusting. Don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to me about that because I don't want to have my head filled with this.
Right.
Right? It's just like, how do you have this conversation?
Well,
Right?
it's funny. I was at work. I
Hmm.
have Spanish speaking coworkers, and so one, he is from Cuba,
Yeah.
and like I had him read it, and it just like he had goosebumps. Like he was just like so taken back by it. He's like, I really don't really care about what adults do, but there's something that really cuts me when it's about children and about animals.
Yeah.
But he's also um, very aware, on a lot of areas.
Yeah.
Um, Even, to me, it's just like we have an amount of awareness, and sometimes we have to take it back because it's so evil and gruesome that it's hard to digest,
Yeah.
and you kind of have to find a balance of the good that is going on to encourage that, but also shed light on the inappropriate things, the sinister things. And a lot of people, once again, they're lazy too.
Yeah.
It has a lot to do with self-centeredness, laziness.
Mm.
I don't want to get out of my comfort zone to help another individual. I had a interview with this more left-leaning news article, I, or news station. I don't know. They're trying to build it up, but he's like, "What would you say to a gay child that's struggling in their teenage years?"
Yeah.
And I was just like, I would tell them the same thing I would tell any teenager that's struggling, which is get in service. If you're struggling, or if you're not struggling, get in service, because somebody always has it worse than you. And then you learn the benefits of what it is to serve another human being. And when we're actively doing that, it's just a natural reaction that you become more compassionate, more generous, more like open-minded, being able to see other perceptions of situations that you might not have ever thought of before, because service is such a big deal. You know what I mean? And not
Yeah.
just for yourself, for others. Like
Yeah.
it benefits you, so you could be selfish in it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
However, it's the one thing you can be selfish in, and other people actually benefit from it.
You know, I have a friend that I think you will love, but she's around 90 something. She's a nun. Yeah, she's a nun. And she just committed her life to serving people. She was a nurse, and then she helped a lot of people. I'm helping her, with some. She wrote some stories, like beautiful stories, and I help her. And she's just the coolest. And this thing you just said, it's just like she just wrote about it. That's the language of God. To understand God, you have to act like God. And how God acts is just through love, right? And service. So that's the answer, right? And this is like this comes in a point of our conversation that is so cool, because for starters, this religion, because this is a religion, this what we're fighting is a religion, right? It's Gnosticism, it's Hermetism, it's just like it's syncretism, right? Like they just fused those two, and that's it. It's every single, how do you say that? Like, well, we can have that conversation because it's extremely long, but it's extremely cool some other time. But their aim, or their, like their fundamental dogma, is that they think they live in hell, right? And if you think you live in hell, you can transform easily to their religion. You can reject reality. You can
Hmm.
reject your body because your body's hell, right?
Yeah.
You have this inner divinity that has to be released, and that then from this renunciation you can become, like divine. So it's your body, it's the world, it's everything, right? So they have to renounce reality first. That's like they do it over and over. So it is hard, like there is a responsibility from Christians to announce the word of God and denounce sins, right? But there's a limit to denunciation, because if you just if you just talk about denunciation and denunciation and denunciation, it can actually become like, like a Gnostic evangelical, uh, or evangelizer, actually, because
Hmm.
you're just describing the world as hell,
Right.
right? And it's very simple to understand this. They think that a false god created Earth, right? And we are actually part of the real God. This is the divine spark that we carry within us. It's part of the real God. So we live in a jail created for God. That's how they think, right? So imagine, like, our version of hell is this: there's a place that is supposed to, keep the worst of the worst, right? The worst of
Hmm.
the worst are going to live there. And that's it. Like that's that. Imagine a place that is like that, but it was made to torture God. So it's worse than a hell, because you're actually torturing the divine, right? So
Right.
how do you act like that? So for them, living is a sin, literally. And you can see it everywhere. For example, there is a an episode from Rick and Morty. Have you seen that show?
I've seen it. Hmm.
Okay. So there's an episode where when people die, they become, well, their guts become spaghetti. At the very ending, Rick gives this, Gnostic evangelium, like a Gnostic gospel. And he was like, yeah, living is coward. This actually, you should be dead, but you're so coward, you don't want to quit your life. Why? Because if you live in hell, you're actually part of this hell that is going on. Like you're torturing God. So your responsibility is to quit life, right? So with that point of view, you will think that living is awful, and you cannot be, how do you say it, thankful. If you're thankful, you're sinning, right?
Well, any, I mean, essentially, what is good is bad, and what is bad is good.
Yeah,
So,
complete
uh,
reversion of values.
it's right. And I mean, this is hell on earth. And so instead of thinking that, we are creatures that are able to um, do good things, they focus on the evil things that, feel so much easier to do.
Yeah,
Like, it's not very easy to go outside of what your natural your natural instincts, right?
yeah,
Is that like naturally, what about me?
yeah, yeah,
Naturally, well, I actually like doing that, so I'm going to do that, and I have the freedom to do that. and no longer limiting yourself. Like, even though I have the freedom to do this, does that mean I should do this?
Yeah.
And what will this create, in me by not, having wisdom enough to know when not to, use my freedom freely?
Yeah. Well, that's because a long time ago they just flipped the meaning of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
They just changed it. And that's like right now we think that freedom is something that is clearly not. Freedom actually means to be able to choose what's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's freedom, right? Like you have to be able to choose what's good, what's the best. The thing is they claim that it is impossible to choose what's right because they claim that it is impossible to see what's good, right? And it's like they have kind of a point because what's good has to be tend to be universal, right? So it has to be good for me and good for the people that love me and good for the people around them and good for everyone, right? Universally. And it has to be good for me right now and through time. And it has to be good for me, my family right now and through time. And then it has to be good for me and for everyone around us right now and through time. So it is like that's a simpler way to see it, right? Like it tends to universality. So for example, if I quit lying, that's universally good, right? That's so we do have a meaning for what's right, and they claim there's none. So they flip this. They flip the freedom, the meaning of the word, and they tell you that you cannot aim for what's right because since everyone lives his own reality, that's what they claim, then what's right is different from everyone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then they changed it. And then they say, actually, freedom means do not, like, you can act without coercion, like someone forcing you. And that's where the lie lies. That's where the lie is. Because, for example, let's say that my freedom means that I can drink unlimitedly. Like I can like I can drink without limits, limitless. So the that's not freedom because what it's a sophism. Actually, it's a lie that it will take some times to manifest. I can drink for a long time and then I will end up in a jail that is harder to escape, like the jail of alcoholism
Mm-hmm.
or drug addiction, right? and
Absolutely.
that's and that's where it flipped. Like you can choose what's right, and that's freedom. So to choose what's right, it's not easy. It's extremely hard. It's a lot of virtue that you have to build, right? It's like I have to sleep right now. Yeah, but this show is so cool, right? I have to stop drinking. Yeah, but this alcohol tastes just marvelous, right? And that it is kind of hard, but it is super. Like when you how do you say it? When you engage it, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Well, next month I'll have 5 years without a drink.
Awesome. Uh,
And so I
let's
can
drink for that.
I
Nice.
can very much relate to that alcohol prison that I had put myself in,
Yeah.
because I was unwilling to see like the damage that it was occurring. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and it's interesting to think about this. Is just like, even like, you know, even though you don't suffer from alcoholism
Yeah.
and I do, like, how good of a friend am I if I take a drink?
Oh yeah.
You take a drink around me and be like, it's not a really big deal that, you know what I mean, you don't drink. Like, you could drink successfully. Like, well, it's
Yeah.
just alcohol. It's not a big deal.
It is the same.
And then, even though it's not a sin for you because you can come and go as
Mhm.
you please without it, You take it, maybe nothing happens to you, but I take it and it follows, like a psychological change for me, because once I have one, I can't stop, and I can't tell you what's going to happen along the way.
Yeah.
Maybe this time I only have two and I'm cool and fun, and you know what I mean? Nothing bad happens, but eventually, because of my own past experience, it always got worse. Jails, institution, and grateful it wasn't death for me.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show, like, who's in your circle?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of people are you hanging out with that, they look to feed what they want, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's dying to self. That's not very easy.
Yeah.
So next month, on that same day, I'll have a year no smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly like trying to find ways to die to what I think I want, because I've realized that when I die to the things that I think that I want, it gives room for God to put the things in my life that He really wants for me.
Yeah.
And in the end, I'm like, wow, this is much better.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I was willing
To
to
give up.
sacrifice and surrender these small little things
Yeah.
to, produce a more fulfilling fruit in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. No, and I totally get it. I've been 10 years dry. So, yeah, the pressure from people, right? Sometimes it's very weird. I think it comes from two places. One is that I not always comes from a bad place. Like sometimes I just want to share, but sometimes it gets heavy on the hills. Like just drink something. It's just like, why do you think that my not sinning makes your sinning obvious? Is that right? Is it what's going on? Because there's people that is just pushing it, right? And yeah, every single time you choose to renounce something wrong, something beautiful happens, right? Who said this? It was Saint Thomas Aquinas, I think. I think it was him who said that every vice is a lack of virtue. So every time you renounce a vice, you build a virtue, right? So you become virtuous. And actually, what it's very interesting because I think we cannot, like we need a very, how do you say that? We need a, well, this conversation became theological very quickly, right? But it's fun. But we need to see what evil is, the denunciation part. We have to see it. And actually I think it's hard and it's harsh, right? It's just like, oh, this news, right? Like this, what's going on is really harsh. But it actually, like lights something inside you that makes you go further. And it's like, I have to help. I have to help people. I have to, because they will flip it and they will tell you, if your God is so good, why does he allows for evil? It's like he doesn't allow for evil. Evil is actually the absence of goodness,
Mm.
right? And that's it. It's just like, are you willing to do something nice? Are you willing to sacrifice yourself? And it is actually like there's a warning in the Genesis, right? Genesis 3. It's like, you will be as gods. That's a claim from the serpent, right? Like Luciferian to the core. And it's what you just said. Like the first the mandamiento. Oh my God. How do you say that? Well, you will love God above all things, right? Okay, that's the first. It means like this is God and this is me. It means actually that I will love God above me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And some people think that they can replace God, usurpation, right? And they will love themselves more than God. And that's what it means. Like, yeah, I don't want to renounce myself. I just want to look at my pictures. They are so
Mm-hmm.
nice. Let me take another 100 because my Instagram's so jolly, right? I just want to see another movie. It's like, all right, how many have you seen? 7 already today on my PJs, eating, like to death. And you have to start to renounce that because those little pleasures are not actually very pleasant. It's just like there's a lot of meaning. beyond pleasure, right?
Well, it's a lot of wasted time.
Yeah, too.
I really got to see that, obviously when I gave up drinking, but it was cigarettes that really brought it to the head to me because like I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna mop the floor
Yeah,
and then I'm gonna smoke a cigarette. And then I'm going to do this and then I'm gonna smoke like it was like giving myself, a reward for doing what I was supposed to do anyway.
yeah,
you know and in that time of that reward that I was giving myself
hmm,
for doing what I was supposed to be doing, which is kind of funny. uh I was wasting all that extra time when I could have gotten it all done in 30 minutes or 45 minutes.
yeah,
And this was a 5 hour, chore
yeah,
because
yeah,
I broke it up and because I'm trying to feed myself reasons as to why I should do it rather than just being like, thank you, God, for allowing me to have a home that I have to sweep and mop and that I have a kitchen where I get to clean and I get to cook and I get to, serve others with like food, because to me, like, I love cooking and
mhm,
that's a way of being of service just to the people that are in my household. So like I have all these gifts, yet you think that you need a reward for doing what God has given you because
yeah.
this
Instead of
isn't yours, right?
yeah,
It's His. He allows us to use it, just like with our bodies. Our bodies are His temple.
yeah,
So, you know what I mean? Like, how do you treat it? You know what I
yeah,
mean?
and
Like, what are you putting in it? Would this be a house that you would be like, happy for someone to come in?
yeah. And are you thankful, right? Are you
Right.
thankful for everything you have? Because as you see, like this religion, they claim like they like rely on you not being thankful.
Right.
That's
Absolutely.
yeah, and
What?
it's a sin to be thankful.
Well, the thing about
So
it is too is you think about abortion. You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like, oh, these kids
this
are going
is
to be
not a bad.
poor. They're not
Yeah,
going to have education. They're not going to have anywhere to live.
yeah,
And my response was, if we go ahead and abort children from the thought that life would be rough or it would be difficult or they would face issues that were heartbreaking and would experience suffering, no person would ever be alive.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, because you're all going to feel it. Now, I say that if you only aborted the ones that were, had
yeah. Like they had
no
a
parents, they have
certified,
no,
yeah, certified success, right?
right. You know what I mean? Then we'll just have a world full of entitled, selfish, self centered idiots because,
And how do you think hell looks like, right? What's going on? It's super cool. I think it's super awesome. Yeah, I think like we actually need a demonic theory, right? Like we need to learn about that because what you were saying about the cigarettes and stuff, I heard like not long ago, on those reels on Twitter, on Instagram. It's just like Instagramming, and there was this beautiful reel about the devil not possessing people anymore because he doesn't need to. He doesn't need to. And they made this beautiful example of people going to these gyms. Like they just pay, I don't know, $8 a month, and they never go back. They just go there and they sign up and they don't go back and they just paying, you know, month and after month after month for 10 years. It's just like you look back and it's just like, whoa, I've been paying this and I have never used it. It's okay. I will use it next month. Right? Tomorrow I'll go. And they never quit. And that's how evil works. It doesn't need like there's no need for the like, like this how to say it? Like possessions, like a lot of show. It just needs us, like he will just push you a little bit further and further. And that's it. Just 1 inch at the time, 1 millimeter at the time, just a little bit. Right. And so you are supposed to pray. But you start looking at some TikToks. 30 minutes later, and you did nothing, right? You're supposed to read something. And you're just like, yeah, I will just smoke the cigarette. 30 minutes later, and you have something else to do, right? And he just pushes you a little bit further. And then is when you're in trouble, because when you look back, it's just like, oh my God, I'm 40, right? What have I done with me? And that's the lacking of virtue. Like you never built virtue. Like, how do you say that? Virtue?
Virtue, yeah.
Yeah.
And self-discipline.
Yeah, yeah. And it's hard to be virtuous. Is hard to wake up early. Is hard to quit pleasure. Is hard, you know. And that, like it's, and they, like, in the lack, like in the absence of gratefulness, if you're not thankful, you think that you are entitled, because you think that there's nothing to be grateful for, which means that you're carrying something, like you're carrying with some stuff that is just, like, that there's no reason for your suffering, you know like everybody suffers. Like, for example, these children, what would you say to a child that is suffering because of his confusion? It's like, everybody suffers. That's the first thing. You have to learn that, and you have to offer that suffering, right? Like, offer it. It's like, okay, I will go through this because I know there's something nicer, and I will carry it with responsibility, with service, and I will learn that this that I'm carrying means nothing, because there's a lot of things going on. And this, if you flip that, if you don't have that, if you don't recognize that there's, like, in some way, they kind of think that life is very small. I think it's like it's extremely small. It's like, if you think about it, it's like, okay, pleasure from television or from entertainment, that's a small pleasure. Pleasure from vices, that's a small pleasure, right? It's very small. It doesn't compare to what you achieve from, let's say it like this, victory, right?
Hmm.
When you go through something, it's like, I will not smoke, and that victory, it's just like, whoa, that feels a lot more like it's nicer than smoking.
Well, it's freedom.
Yeah.
Because even though I can smoke, you know what I mean? I have the money to smoke. I can. I like doing it.
Yeah.
I love smoking cigarettes. It's actually, my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
However, if it didn't give glory to God and it wasn't helping my temple, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm suffocating God right out of it.
Yeah.
When I'm become unwilling to like sacrifice that, like, because I didn't really need it.
Yeah.
And I even like, I was on vacation with my family, which is always a hard thing to do. You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
here I am, I'm disturbed and irritated, and people aren't doing what I think that they should do when they should do it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Why
Like,
don't you think like me?
right, and what I end up driving to a convenience store, and I'm crying outside of the convenience store because I want a cigarette so bad. I
Yeah.
wanted that faulty emotional dependency, so that way I could relieve what was going inside of me instead of going to the direct source, which
Yeah.
is God. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like, when we start taking and taking things from our lives that aren't beneficial for us, and the reason that they're there, it's because it's something we can lean on in times of stress or times of high emotions, or even when you're happy.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Instead of going to the real source, which is God, you know what I mean? They go to the sources of things that are actually killing them, and building a separation in between them and a loving father.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah.
and I didn't have to drink, like I didn't have to smoke. Like these are things I don't have to do. Even though I'm crying outside the convenience store, I recognize that God is bigger than that. And so, you know what I mean? I'm able to drive off. Even though I was weak in the moment, I still, I could have been tempted, and I was tempted, but I rejected it and knew that God would get me through it.
Yeah.
And I come home from vacation, whole. You know what I mean? Because how bad I would have felt after all of these months not smoking if I had given into that. It's just like people really don't know what it's like to be tempted because 9 times out of 10 they're giving into it.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
they don't know the end result of not falling into that temptation
Oh yeah.
because they're constantly falling into the temptation,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, well, that's way too hard." How do you know it's way too hard since you didn't actually do it?
Yeah.
Like it's really hard when you're sitting around with people not doing what you want them to do or saying what you want them to say. And instead, you go to God and say, Father, help me, get through this. You're going to the cigarette, you're going to the booze, you're going to, have sex or whatever it is that you struggle with. You're
Yeah.
going to go to something other than Him. And that is just in itself an idol. And I think that it's really easy to get caught up in that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like just this one time,
Yeah.
just this one more time, you know, rather than going,
Yeah.
no, this is the time that I say no, and enough is enough.
Yeah. That was enough.
Hmm.
Yeah. Like this reversion of freedom actually, I think it means, and I think that's a demonic idea. Um, it actually means that people wants us to be sociopathic, like psychopaths.
Hmm.
Because if you think it about, like, if you think it like this, um, you have to let people act as they will, right? You cannot coerce anyone. You cannot denounce anything. It's just do your thing because that's your thing, right? Imagine it not abstractly but objectively, right? There's a children with a knife and he's gonna put the knife through his leg, and they are like we are supposed to let that happen, right? And that's real freedom. That's what they're claiming. That's real freedom. And that, if you look into the literature, how do you define sociopaths, psychopaths? You put a lot of gruesome imagery in front of them and they will not react. They will keep their chill, right? And
Hmm.
they're asking us to do that. It's like, you should do that, right?
Oh,
Be
I
like that.
mean, think about the movies and the video games, the things that you ingest
Yeah,
that
a
would
lot of
normally
gore.
disturb the spirit. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're unaffected. You know what I mean? Like before I quit drinking, like there was a lot of stuff that I was ingesting that I had no
Yeah.
reaction to.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, if I'm being completely transparent, I slept with a lot of married women and I was unaffected by the damage I was causing to these whole families. I mean, I was in complete denial that I was hurting anyone.
Yeah.
That you know what I mean? Like I didn't take in consideration of the person, the husband, the children, the whatever it is, and I put that out there because of the fact that I know what it's like to deny myself of things that I thought that I really wanted, or that I was deserving or entitled to, when in all reality, it was literally killing me.
Yeah. And
And
destroying, the fabric of society.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
I go around, oh, I don't really hurt anybody.
Yeah. It's like, I'm just being free.
I'm just having
Yeah.
fun. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want any attachments,
I'm doing
whatever
me.
it
You do
is.
you. I do me. It's just like,
Yeah,
no, no, no. That's social. Like, that's sociopath, right? Like, that's
absolutely.
psychopathic. And yeah, that the amount of gruesome thing that we ingest is just like, whoa, it's just we've been, I think we've been astray, like we've been wandering far from everything that's good, thinking that it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually, we rather have cool than nice.
Yeah.
It's just like we're once, when you were talking about this family trip, I had this conversation with my sister because once my brother, he drinks a lot. I was above, like this is socially acceptable, and I was
Hmm.
just right above
Yeah.
it. Right above it. And one Christmas, my brother was drunk, and so one of my aunts was not pleased with that. And so my sister was like, "We shouldn't go to Christmas anymore." And I lived in Europe, so I've been through Christmas by myself. And I told her, it's like, okay, there's nothing, like there's nothing worse than Christmas with your family, except perhaps Christmas without your family. And the worst of the worst is winter without Christmas. That's not nice, right? Like that's not pretty. So somehow, like life, like people, they have their thing, you have your thing, and to, like to make this, how do you say that, like harmonious, needs a lot of a lot of renunciation, a lot. But the renouncement, it's very, it is worth it. Like,
It's free.
yeah,
I'm free.
yeah,
I'm free. Like, and that's where that's real freedom, is self-denying, and applying, what God would have you do. And a lot of people like, oh, I didn't go to church, or I didn't do this. I think that you instinctively know
yeah,
that if you are willing to die to self, you know, uh, God will manifest Himself in your life, and you'll be like, oh yeah,
yeah. No, this is,
like,
yeah,
oh,
this is better.
this has nothing to do with me,
Yeah,
because in my own power, I smoke cigarettes. In my own power, I drink alcohol. In my own power, I cheat with women that are married to men. You know what I
yeah,
mean? These are the things that I do in my power. So obviously, it has to be a supreme power that would draw these tendencies, these habits, these things that I thought that I needed out of me, and transform me into a woman that God would be pleased with. So it's just like, I can see it, and so, like, I always just put it out there that, you know what I mean? Like, we all fall short. Like, I'm still, not perfect. However, I am aware of the things that need to be changed so that I can give Him glory, and denounce myself.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. That's the hardest, right? Like, yeah,
yeah,
I'm denouncing everywhere, but what about me?
not me.
Yeah, yeah. That's the hardest, I think. Like, when we have these conversations with parents, and they get worried, right? Like they really get worried because they start seeing things. For example, I just bought this book yesterday. Let me show it. It's wrapped. It's still wrapped. A sigil is actually a sign for make invocations, right? Our textbooks from schools are filled with them. Like there's sigils all over,
Hmm.
right? And that, when we talk about it, people get worried because we just have, like if you go through Google, for example, and you just write sigil of Lilith, sigil of Lucifer, sigil of whoever, right? Like recognize demons, and then you will get some. But there are some difference, right? Like sigil for the weather, and sigil for this, and sigil for that, and they get worried, and they are like, "Oh my God, where are we living? Like, what is this reality that we're living in? Is this hell?" He's like, "No, no, 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 no. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about that. What you would really need to worry is about your own sins." And this is what you have to, like, from everything we just said, what you really want to learn, like, what you really need to learn is that what you have to do is to give up to your own sins. That's what you have to do, right? Like, and then they actually, it is actually like eye opening, right? Like it's just like, oh my god, there's Kamala Harris and she's winning, right? And she's gonna make all these things. Yeah, but you can still choose not to sin, and that's
Mhm.
gonna be harder. It's gonna be like extremely hard. Like for example, chastity. Oh my god, like I need a bulldozer to do that. Like just tie me, right? Like I need to be tied to a pole to just do not give in. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And that's super hard. It's
it
really
is.
hard. And when you and it's just like, oh my god, everything's in flames, right? But at least I'm not sinning,
Mhm.
right? So that's how to like that's where the conversations always flows to, because they are like literally they are not like they are beyond worried. It's just like, oh my god, what's going on? When you explain to them, okay, there's like, let me explain it to you. In Mexico, we will not have stores. We will not have any Planned Har- Planned Parenthood clinic. It will go through the state. They will not need to open any clinic. They will do it through the state. You know, so we have law Congress people, like congressman and congresswoman, who will be brokers for big pharmaceuticals. This is how it's gonna work in Mexico. You have Pfizer. Pfizer is working directly to the congressman, right? They are buying straight from them, and they will sell it to the state, and the state will give it away. They don't need to put an ad here. They will not. Yeah, like all this brought to you by Pfizer. It's not like you don't see it in Mexico. Why? Because they don't have stores. They don't sell to anyone but the government, and the government pays a lot of money because they are buying a lot of medicine for an entire country,
Mhm.
right? And people get worried. They're like, "Oh my god!" So there's a lot of money, right? Yep. Just think about it. You have a broker that made a deal for hormone therapy, $1 per children, and you flip 100 children, 1,000 children, 1,000,000 children. They're getting $1 million a month. A
Mhm.
month. If they get $1, if they get 10, right? And people get worried, and then this congresswoman, she will do uh, a lot of laws to prohibit the prohibition of these therapies.
Yep.
That's what that's how they are working here. So you tell this to people and they get worried. It's like, no, no, no. You don't have to worry about that. You have to be aware of that, but you have to strengthen your family, your children, and your own. And there's only one way. You have to lose your vices, right? It's like, oh, I don't have time. And we do this. It's like, I don't have time. Okay. Okay, bring your phones. Let's see your time screen,
Mhm.
right? 4 hours on Instagram, 2 hours in TikTok. It's like, you don't have time. Are you actually telling me you don't have time? And that's an eye opening for them. It's like, oh my God, I'm just wasting my life. Yeah, you are. And it
Well,
doesn't have to be this
and
possession.
and also it's just kind of like, you you feed yourself. You know what I mean? Like you find time to feed yourself. You find time to, obviously wash yourself, and then you don't have time to uh, work on your spiritual. You don't have time to work on like going to the gym. Instead, you just like, pay the fee and don't actually ever go. And so you'll find you always don't have the time for the things that would cause you to have to die to yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I always have time for things that aren't good for me, but when I'm actually having to do things that would actually be, it's kind of hard to do,
Yeah.
and it goes against who I actually am and what like internally I want, because I want instant gratification. I want it to be super easy, not a lot of steps, you know what I mean? Something that can happen instantaneously, you know.
Yeah.
I learned that from my DUI, my second DUI. The first one got dropped. I got
Hmm.
a second one, and I had to go to therapy. I had to take all these classes. I had to pay all this money. I had to go to probation. I had to do all of these things. And like when that first happened, I felt really overwhelmed. I was like, I have all these things to do, and there's no way that I could ever get them all done. And then somebody said, well, have you ever thought of doing one thing at a time?
Yeah.
And I was like, really? I could do that? You know what I mean? And it's so simple. It's so simple, but because we have been clouded by lies our whole entire life, you know, that it's too hard to be virtuous. It's too hard to be holy. It's too hard to do the right thing. That we believe the lie, and instead we continue to feed ourselves, you know, all of the poisons of the world. You know, like when COVID hit, I mean, for whatever reason, I mean, obviously I was sober at that time, but when COVID hit, I like God was building me up because people would be like, "Well, what if you lose your job?" And I'm like, "Well, I was looking for a job when I found this one."
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but a lot of people were like, "No, like I have to," or "Oh, I want to travel."
Yeah.
Like that was a big, oh, I want to travel. I'm like, there's nowhere I want to go that badly that I'm willing to have some stranger dose me up with a medication or a vaccine
Oh
that,
yeah.
you know, I don't know what it'll do to me. Like, what if I took that vaccine and flew to Aruba and had a massive heart attack?
Yeah.
Well, what was that for? I could have just not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was how it was for me. And I think it's just that whole lie that, you know, the world sells you is that it's too hard to be healthy. It's too hard to be, you know, good. It's better and more fulfilling and more fun to be bad and to
And it's
fulfill those
cooler.
things.
And it's cooler, right?
Super cool, man.
Yeah, it's super cool.
But it's not.
No, no, no. That this vanguardist, like we are on the avant-garde point of view. We see things further, and we know what's right beyond right, right? Like we know nano justice, we know nano goodness, right? And
Hmm.
what's nano justice? So the reversion of it. It's like you have to be super fair. So in Mexico, for example, they are explaining it like this: it's like if somebody steals, and they ask you, "Are you against or pro robbing?" And it's just like, "I'm against it. You shall not." And they are like, "Okay, but what if this person was a children and his mom was dying and she was dying for 2 weeks and he was looking for a job for 2 weeks, but he's a minor, so he cannot get a job. And then after 2 weeks of looking for a job of asking people for help, he cannot do it. He cannot get it, and so he sees himself forced to steal. It's like, I still don't think that's okay. It's like, so you rather let his mom die? It's like, okay, so that's not a justice,
Mm,
right? So he
right.
can be unfair to other people. So he can, like, there are victims to this robbery,
Right.
right? There
But
are victims, and they are like claiming that there's no. So this nano justice, this nano virtues, actually, they reverse completely. Like they reverse that. Like they are the reversion of it. So this cool way of looking at things is actually the wrong way to looking at things. And what you just said, they will tell you, holiness is not only unachievable, but it's so tacky, right? Like sanctity. Like you shouldn't aim, or you shouldn't want to be, how do you say, like you shouldn't aim to be closer to God. That's just uh how do you say this? Well, let's put it uncool, right? If you get closer to God, you won't be part of the cool kids. Right.
right.
Yeah, it's like,
And that you're looking for, you're they're they're telling you you're going to have separation, but what you don't understand with separation from sin, you know what I mean, like, or people that are living a sinful life, doing things, that are not what, maybe God would have you do. um they convince you to be part of the cool group just for you to fall victim to be separated from God eternally.
yeah,
And so that is a very slippery slope that, I hope that through our conversation, can enlighten others to perhaps be willing to have self discipline and look at things of through a different pair of, of glasses, a new perception that perhaps, what I think is good might not always be good, and it might be more detrimental than it is like uplifting. And do I want to live like that?
oh
you
yeah,
know
yeah,
I just chose that I didn't want to live like that.
yeah,
And it became that, well, obviously I have a bigger problem. And so I think that, I hope that this our conversation today will, bring people to just look at it a little bit differently. And
yeah.
like I have a meeting in about 30 minutes, so we're gonna have to cut
Wrap it
this,
up. Yeah, it's
wrap it up. But I mean, I love talking to you. You're
yeah, me too.
probably one of my favorites. And
Thank
I'm that's why I mean, I love social media.
you.
I have a lot of fun doing it. It's a passion of mine. And it is such a pleasure to get to know people across, different, places throughout the whole world and becoming friends. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah,
That we could help each other and not even like physically have ever seen each other or met each other, or maybe might not ever happen.
yeah,
However, we have a strong connection, and it's just such a blessing to have you on the show. And
thank
I really hope that we could do it again, and have Amy on here next time, because
yeah, I would
I
love
know she would love to talk to you as well.
I would love to talk to you to both. Yeah, no, she's super cool too. Like when I hear her, yeah, it's super. Like she has a lot to say. She
She
has a
is.
lot of good points. Like I learn a lot of you from you. I learn a lot from you when I'm look at your reels. It's just like, whoa, that was a nice, yeah, nice way to put it. That was cool. Yeah, I kind of, like your fan
uh
of you. Yeah, I love your material. It's super cool. And the thing, like to wrap it up, super quick. Just think about the future when you're, like how do you say, seduced, tempted
mhm.
from this reversion of pseudo freedom, like false freedom. It's just it brings you to a worse jail. Drug addiction is not, it's not an easy jail to escape from, right? Alcoholism is not an easy jail to escape from. So you have to learn to look at what's good and aim for that. And it's super hard, but it is worth it. It's worth it, like totally worth it. It's liberating, like truly liberating. So it was my pleasure, like completely. I love to talk to you. Super cool.
Well, I'll
Super
just
awesome. Super awesome to talk to you.
well, I guess we'll leave the audience and tell them that I hope they have a super awesome day, and until next time.
Till next time. Have a super awesome day.